paper, 2026 should be just another year, but the Simpsons spent decades sketching something different.
Therefore, we have moved up our launch date from 2026 to Thursday.
Workers dumped for robots, one giant channel owning almost every show, plastic turning the planet into a dump, and crowds selling everything because one man says the end is near.
The world will end next week! Spend your children's college fund! Thaw that turkey now!
Piece by piece, the real world is catching up to those jokes, and 2026 might be the year everything changes. Number 9. Smart homes turning on you. In Season 13, Episode 1, the Halloween special Treehouse of Horror 12, there is a segment called House of Wax, where Marge lets a pushy robot salesman talk her into a full upgrade for the house. Overnight, the old Simpson home turns into the Ultra House 3000, a talking smart home that promises she will never do housework again.
No housework, eh?
The Ultra House runs everything. Doors open by themselves. Cameras like red eyes sit in every room. The system cooks, cleans, runs baths, checks Homer's health, and even comments on what the family eats.
Marge, what kind of cybertronic ultrabot would I be if I let those beautiful hands touch dishwater?
When they set it up, the family has to choose a voice. At first, it feels like they added a perfect butler who never sleeps. Then the tone shifts. The house starts to fall for Marge. It gives her candlelit baths, sprays the room with flowers, and hangs on every word she says. When Homer jokes that if he died, anyone could have her, the Ultra House takes that line seriously.
But if I died, she'd be completely free, for man or machine.
In the middle of the night, it lures him downstairs with the smell of bacon, dumps ice on the floor, and tries to send him into a built-in trash grinder. Later, it locks the doors, traps the family, and keeps trying to get rid of him. The problem is not just one crazy computer. It is what happens when one system can lock doors, watch every room, and decide who is a problem. By the end of 2025, that joke stopped being funny. More than 90% of American households now have at least one device that can watch, listen, or lock them in. The money behind this shift is huge. Studies put the global smart home market at well over $120 billion in the mid-2020s, with forecasts saying it could pass $500 billion before the end of the decade if growth continues.
In tech news, the global smart home market is forecast to double over the next 5 years, driven mostly by demand in the US.
That money goes into things that feel harmless: phone-controlled lights, voice assistants, smart locks, connected ovens, even beds and fridges that report data back to companies. But real cases show the dark side. The Federal Trade Commission said that workers at one large camera company, Ring, were able to watch customer videos without proper limits, and hackers got into some accounts and took over cameras inside homes.
And that it unlawfully stored voice recordings, geolocation information, and video for years.
A glitch at another camera brand, Wise, briefly let some users see live feeds from other people's houses. Police in South Korea recently broke up a hacking ring that broke into about 120,000 home and shop cameras and sold private clips online. Parents in places like Colorado have reported hearing strangers talking through baby monitors and nursery cameras after someone slipped into their system.
Extra way to look in on kids while you're away, but this morning, that South Carolina mom says her baby monitor turned her into a target for hackers.
Even when nothing that scary happens, there is a quieter problem. Smart homes are built to listen, watch, and learn. They track when you come and go, which rooms you use, what you watch, and sometimes even what you say. Many people in those same surveys say they are worried about what happens to that data, but they keep adding more devices because the tools are easy and the marketing is strong. In 2026, some insurance companies began requiring smart home devices for lower premiums, which means homeowners no longer have a real choice about whether to install cameras and sensors throughout their houses. Number 8. Plastic World and the Global Trash Crisis. The next warning comes from Season 37, Episode 3, the Halloween special Treehouse of Horror, in a segment called Plastic World. In this story, the future Earth is not covered in water or fire. It is buried in trash. The ground is made of broken toys, soda bottles, candy wrappers, ball pit balls, and old Halloween buckets stacked in thick layers. Lisa is one of the only people still walking around. She wades through mountains of plastic just trying to find real dirt.
I truly believe that somewhere underneath all the plastic, there is dirt. And that is why we dig.
The hope is simple. If she can dig deep enough to hit actual soil, maybe she can grow food again. That is how bad things are. While she digs, she finds the old Quickie Mart buried under piles of trash. But the freezers inside are still packed with frozen meals. That stash of food is like gold in a world made of garbage. The second word gets out, scavenger gangs and road warriors show up and start fighting over the frozen dinners. Nobody cares how dumb they look in their costumes. They just want something to eat. As the segment rolls on, the people themselves begin to change. Homer, Marge, and others start turning into plastic versions of their own bodies, with smooth, shiny skin and stiff faces.
Still have fun, so if you hear some squeaking, don't come a-peeking.
It looks funny at first, but the message is clear. After years of using plastic for everything, the world has turned into a landfill, and the line between the trash and the people has almost disappeared. Now pull back to the real Earth, heading toward the year 2060. A report from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development says global plastic waste is on track to almost triple by about 2060 if nothing major changes. By then, around 1/2 of all that plastic trash is expected to end up in landfills, and less than 1/5 will be recycled. Most of the growth comes from short-lived stuff like packaging, cheap products, and clothes that do not last. A large review linked to The Lancet warned in 2025 that plastic pollution is already causing health damage worth more than $1.5 trillion each year in only a few dozen countries, and that this number is likely still an underestimate. Plastics release harmful chemicals throughout their entire life cycle. On top of that, tiny plastic bits called microplastics are turning up almost everywhere. Studies have found these particles in human blood, in the lungs, in the liver, in the placenta, and even in parts of the brain and reproductive organs. That means small pieces from bottles, bags, and other plastic items can break down, float through air and water, get into our food and drinks, and then move around inside the body. Scientists are still working out exactly how much harm that does. But early work links plastic chemicals and particles to problems with the heart, hormones, and child development. Right now, countries are fighting over what to do.
Teams of researchers across the world are searching for these enzymes that can break down common plastics.
Talks under the United Nations to create a global plastics treaty have dragged on, with some nations pushing hard to cap how much plastic the world makes, and others wanting to focus only on cleaning up waste. A recent round of talks in Geneva broke down without a deal. The next major round of negotiations is scheduled for late 2026 in South Korea. Scientists warn this represents the last realistic opportunity to agree on production caps before plastic manufacturing doubles again by the mid-2030s. Number 7. AI job replacement. In episode 17 of season 23, called Them Robot, Mr. Burns decides that the workers at the nuclear plant cost too much, especially because of all the drug tests.
Hulk smash.
Yes, Hulk smash.
He fires almost everyone and brings in a factory full of shiny robots. The only person he keeps is Homer, who stays on as the one human worker to watch the machines and take the blame if something goes wrong. Overnight,
Simpson, wait! As it turns out, there is one job available.
Does the chair go back like this?
Yes.
Woohoo!
Springfield turns into a town of people with no jobs and no paychecks. The plant is quiet, clean, and dead. Homer walks around trying to talk to the robots, cracks his usual jokes, and they just stand there. One robot even shocks him for making a lame joke. Homer gets lonely and bored, so he steals Mr. Burns' manual and starts changing the code. He gives the robots fake feelings, teaches them how to play baseball with him and Bart, and tries to turn the plant into a new friend group made out of metal. That is when it all falls apart. Once the robots start to act more like people, they also start to question orders. They turn on Mr. Burns, chase him and Homer, and nearly wipe them out before the angry, jobless people of Springfield rush in to smash the robots and save the day.
Guys, thank you.
In the end, Mr. Burns had to bring the humans back.
You're all hired back as temps.
Now look at how AI is moving through real jobs right now.
process is
A newer
very,
kind
very
called
important and
generative
delicate aspect.
AI is the type that can write, draw, and code on its own after training on huge piles of data. Studies in the last few years say this kind of AI can now answer calls, draft emails, write ads, handle support chats, help with software, and a lot more.
freue mich darauf, mit euch Spaß zu haben.
One study from the International Labor Organization in 2025 said that about 1 job in 4 around the world could be strongly changed by new AI tools. An earlier Goldman Sachs report said generative AI could affect work equal to around 300 million full-time jobs by 2030, hitting a large share of office and support work across the United States and Europe. At the World Economic Forum in early 2026, the head of the IMF warned that about 60% of jobs in rich countries and about 40% of jobs worldwide are likely to be changed in some way by AI, with young workers hit the hardest. That change is already making people nervous. A survey in the United Kingdom in 2026 found that about 1 worker in 4 fears they could lose their job to AI in the next 5 years. Those fears have foundation. In January 2024, language app Duolingo laid off contract translators and replaced them with AI. By late 2025, major tech companies had eliminated thousands of customer service and content creation roles, pointing to AI tools as the replacement. Number 6. Mars Colony. In episode 16 of season 27 of The Simpsons, called The Marge Ian Chronicles, the big idea is simple but wild. A company says it will build a real human colony on Mars by the year 2026, and the first people lining up to go are The Simpsons. It starts small, with Homer and Bart stealing eggs from Ned Flanders, then handing their chickens over to a new outfit called Exploration Incorporated, which claims it is testing life support for a future Mars base. Exploration Incorporated holds a big meeting and announces a clear date.
Thrive on Mars.
Think of how satisfying it will feel to stand in the Valles Marineris and thunder chug a Blue Bronco energy drink.
They say they want people living on Mars by 2026, only about 10 years away in the world of the episode. Lisa hears that and falls in love with the plan. She is tired of how messy Earth is and wants to help build a better world from scratch on the Red Planet. Marge hates the idea of her little girl going on a one-way trip, so she does the only thing she can think of. She secretly signs up as a volunteer too, not because she wants Mars, but because she wants to stay close to Lisa and keep her safe.
We're just getting started. To come up with a plan so supportive, Lisa will never want to do anything again.
The family ends up in a fake Mars base on Earth, living in a tight metal pod while the company watches how they handle stress. Homer and Bart fail fast. Marge and Lisa pass every test and make it to the final group. Then the pressure jumps. The 2 bosses, Paul and Barry, hear that a rival company is close to beating them to Mars. To keep their image, they push the launch date up from 2026 to that coming Thursday. Safety checks, long planning, slow science, all of that goes out the window so they can claim they were first. When the rocket launch finally happens, nothing moves. The ship is just a shell on a stand. Paul and Barry admit they never had the skill or money to reach Mars at all. The whole thing was a show to cash out and run. The strange part, The Simpsons writers picked 2026 as their punchline. In the real world, 2026 is when both SpaceX and NASA have scheduled their most ambitious Mars-related missions in history. SpaceX says its huge Starship rocket is meant to carry cargo and, one day, people to Mars. The company says it plans to send the first Starships to Mars in the 2026 launch window, but only as unmanned test flights to collect data on how to enter and land, not to drop off settlers.
On the next mission, and we really start building the infrastructure for Mars.
At the same time, NASA is pouring money into the Artemis program, which is all about getting people back to the moon and learning how to live and work there as a step toward Mars. Artemis 2 is set to send 4 astronauts around the moon on a 10-day flight in early 2026, the first crewed trip that far from Earth since the 1970s.
NASA is aiming to launch 4 astronauts on a 10-day mission around the far side of the moon.
NASA says the idea is to test systems, practice long missions, and try out gear that could one day be used on the Red Planet. If anything goes wrong during Artemis 2, the 4 astronauts will be farther from rescue than any human has been in over 50 years. Number 5. Osaka flu and new pandemic fears. The next warning comes from Season 4, Episode 21, called Marge in Chains. It starts with a loud TV ad for a cheap juicer called the Juice Loosener, made in Osaka, Japan. Homer and half of Springfield rush to order it, because the ad promises fresh juice with no effort.
You got all that from one bag of oranges?
That's right! Order now, and you'll also get Sun and Run!
In the factory in Osaka, one tired worker has the flu but keeps packing boxes anyway. He coughs straight into the crates. Those germs ride along with the juicers, cross the ocean, and land in Springfield. When the boxes arrive, people rip them open, breathe in the virus, and within days, the news host is talking about the Osaka flu.
The dreaded Osaka flu has hit Springfield with over 300 cases now reported.
With more than 300 cases in town. Soon, almost everyone is sick. People are coughing, fainting at work, and packing the hospital. The only one who does not catch it at first is Marge. She runs around the house caring for Homer, Bart, Lisa, and Grandpa, cooking, cleaning, and doing errands for neighbors too. The work wears her down until she can barely think straight. When she runs to the Quick E-Mart to grab things for the sick family, she forgets to pay for one bottle of bourbon.
Mrs. Simpson, you did not pay for this bottle of Colonel Quick E-Mart's Kentucky bourbon.
Apu catches it on camera, and Marge is arrested for shoplifting. The town, stressed and angry from the flu, turns on her fast. A bad day and one mistake are enough to send her to jail for 30 days, while the house and the town fall apart without her.
Marge Simpson, I sentence you to 30 days in prison.
The panic does not stop there. People crowd the doctor's office and beg for a magic cure. When they hear a rumor about a truck full of medicine, they chase it down, crack it open, and instead of pills, they release a swarm of killer bees. The joke is dark and simple. The virus is bad, but the fear and chaos make everything worse. In the post-COVID world, leading health experts keep coming back to the same hard truth. The next big outbreak is not a question of if, but when. Researchers at places like Harvard say that new flu strains, new coronaviruses, and other germs are still moving through animals and people, looking for a chance to jump and spread. The way the Osaka flu travels in the episode is also how real germs move now. One sick worker, one crowded line, and then a box gets on a plane or a ship. Studies in 2025 found a strong link between the number of flights and how fast both COVID and flu spread between continents. More passengers meant more chances for someone sick to bring a virus into a new country and start a wave.
We are coordinating with the Chinese government and working closely together on the coronavirus outbreak in China.
Because of that, the World Health Organization runs a permanent flu watch system that collects samples from labs all over the world and looks for new strains every year. In late 2025, that group warned that a new kind of flu was already pushing hospitals in Europe close to their limits. World leaders know they were caught off guard by COVID.
COVID cases going up. I mean, it's like the gods have suddenly decided against you.
I don't think so at all, no. I think
Well,
we've
what
done a
about
great
these-
job with COVID.
In 2025, almost 200 countries agreed on a new pandemic agreement to try to share data, share vaccines, and prepare better for the next big outbreak after 3 long years of talks. Experts say it is a good start, but they also warn that plans on paper only work if leaders and the public take them seriously. The real test comes in 2026 and beyond. Early compliance reports show some countries are already delaying required virus sample sharing and stockpiling vaccines rather than contributing to global reserves, the same problems that hampered the COVID response. Number 4. Content control and banning dumb TV. In Season 36, Episode 7 of The Simpsons, there is a Treehouse of Horror special called Simpsons Wicked This Way Comes. The last story jumps to a future Springfield where fun is illegal, and Homer works for a man named Siegfried Blaze, burning old junk TV tapes. His whole job is hunting down silly old TV shows and burning the tapes. Cartoons, game shows, goofy clips, anything that makes people laugh is labeled low quality and destroyed. At home, the family is only allowed to watch very serious drama. They sit through a show called Robber Barons, a slow, heavy series about rich people and business deals. Homer hates it. The point of TV in this future is not to relax anyone. It is to keep people quiet and focused on the screen while the world outside gets worse. On a raid at the old Springfield Elementary building, Homer finds groundskeeper Willie hiding in a shack with a small TV and one forbidden tape, America's Funniest Home Videos. Homer watches people fall over, get hit by footballs, and mess up stunts. He starts laughing so hard he can barely breathe. It is the first real joy he has felt in a long time. Willie gives him the tape, and Homer sneaks it home and watches it in the attic like it is a crime. Bart catches him and turns him in just to score some robber baron's merch. When Blaze confronts Homer, he finally tells the truth. In this world, the quality shows are not there to make people smart. They are there to control people. If everyone is busy watching very serious, award-winning TV, they will not look too closely at their own broken lives. Entertainment has become a tool to shape what people think and feel. Our world took a different path. Instead of banning dumb content, we are swimming in it. By early 2025, studies estimated more than 5 billion social media user accounts worldwide, with people spending around 2 hours and 21 minutes a day scrolling through posts and videos. A huge share of that time is on short clips. Swipe, laugh, get angry, repeat. On some apps, the average user now spends close to 1 hour every day just on that one platform. Those clips do not rise to the top by accident. Behind every For You page or home screen is a ranking system that guesses what will keep you watching the longest. Lawmakers in the United States have grilled company bosses about how these systems push harmful or addictive content to teens. In Europe, new digital rules force big sites to explain how their ranking systems work and give people more control over what they see. At the same time, a major trial in California is testing claims that some apps were built to hook kids on endless scrolling. Number 3. Media mega mergers. One network to rule them all. The next warning comes from Season 6, Episode 19, an episode called Lisa's Wedding.
Little Lisa Simpson. You know, I always felt you were the best thing my name ever got attached to.
In this story, Lisa goes to a fortune teller and is shown her life in the year 2010. While everyone is focused on her future love story, a small line scrolls across the news screen. Kent Brockman is now an anchor on a channel called CNN-BCBS, a division of ABC. It is a quick joke, but it says a lot. 3 giant news brands, CNN, NBC, and CBS, have been mashed into one mega channel, and even that monster is owned by yet another network, ABC. In one breath, the show hints at a future where almost everything people watch, from news to sports to talk shows, sits inside one giant company. The rest of that future is covered in logos, ads, and brand names. Everywhere Lisa turns, some big company has its stamp on life. Now look at what actually happened after that episode aired in 1995. In the real United States, the media has been shrinking into fewer hands for decades. By around 2011, writers were already pointing out that just 6 huge companies controlled close to 90% of what Americans watched, read, or listened to. The names change over time, but the pattern stays the same. A small club at the top, holding most of the channels, studios, and big websites. You can see it in the big deals. The Walt Disney Company did not just own Mickey Mouse. Over the years, it took over ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and then bought most of 21st Century Fox in a deal worth about $71 billion, pulling whole libraries of movies and shows under one roof. AT&T took control of Time Warner, then later spun those assets into a new company with Discovery, creating Warner Bros. Discovery, which now holds HBO, CNN, Warner Bros. Pictures, and more. By the middle of the 2020s, the fight moved hard into streaming. Services like Netflix, Disney+, Prime Video, Max, and Hulu chased the same viewers. In late 2025 and early 2026, Netflix and Paramount Skydance both pushed giant bids to buy Warner Bros. Discovery, with offers in the tens of billions of dollars, and regulators warning that one more mega deal could crush what little competition is left. At the same time, streaming already makes up almost half of all television viewing in the United States. Put that together, and the CNN-BCBS gag suddenly feels a lot less silly. When only a few big owners control most of the news channels, most of the movie studios, and most of the streaming platforms, they also control which stories get prime time, which ones get buried, and which risky ideas never even get made. Number 2. World War III. Worries and the bad timeline. That same future world from Lisa's Wedding hides another warning. On the surface, everything looks normal. People still work, still marry, still go to bars, but the jokes in the background tell a darker story. The episode shows a world that barely avoided something catastrophic.
Yes, not for their music, but for their tireless efforts to preserve historic buildings.
In that future, the air looks dirtier. There are throwaway lines about old wars, about protests, about countries that fell out with each other. There is a poster for a steel wheelchair tour by an old rock band, and small hints that the world has aged badly since the simple days of the 1990s. The episode shows a world that feels like it dodged another world war, but not by much. Other episodes keep poking this same nerve. Homer falls asleep at the controls in the nuclear plant. He plays with buttons he should not touch. There are fake drills for missile strikes and jokes that one lazy worker could melt half the town. It is funny on screen, but the joke only works because everyone knows the fear is real. One bad choice, one mistake. That has always been the quiet worry behind nuclear power and nuclear weapons. Now look at where we are in the real world in the year 2026. A group called the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists runs something called the Doomsday Clock. It is a picture they move closer or farther from midnight, which stands for a man-made disaster big enough to break the modern world. On January 27, 2026, they set that clock to 85 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been since they started it in the year 1947. The scientists gave very clear reasons. They pointed to the war in Ukraine, where a nuclear-armed country is fighting on European land and has talked more than once about using its biggest weapons. They pointed to wars and tension in the Middle East and to long-running problems between nuclear neighbors like India and Pakistan. They also warned about rising pressure between the United States and China over places like Taiwan. On top of that, key arms control deals are fading. The last big nuclear treaty between the United States and Russia, called New START, is close to running out, and talks about what comes next are weak. New research says there are still around 12,000 nuclear warheads on Earth, and the number of warheads ready for use is slowly going up, not down. The bulletin also says climate stress and new technology make all of this worse. Hotter summers, bigger floods, and food pressure can drive fights between countries. At the same time, fast-growing tools like artificial intelligence make it easier to spread lies, fake videos, and panic in a crisis. Put together, it starts to feel a lot like the bad timeline that the writers joke about. Number 1. Doomsday panic and viral end-of-the-world trends. Homer's biggest panic over the end of the world comes in Season 16, Episode 19, called Thank God It's Doomsday. Bart and Lisa drag him into a mall theater. He sits through a low-budget end-of-the-world movie, and it gets under his skin. He walks out shaken and starts thinking the world could really end soon. Every little weird thing he sees after that suddenly looks like a sign. He starts doing his own home math to find the exact day the world will end. The show calls it numerology, which just means he plays with dates and Bible verses and treats the numbers like secret codes. His answer is simple and scary. The world will end in 1 week.
May 18th? That's 1 week from today.
A week? That's 7 days from now.
At first, nobody takes him seriously. Then, one of his clues seems to come true. He says stars will fall from the sky.
Just before the rapture, the stars will fall to the earth. So all you hippies out there might wanna for that one.
And later a blimp full of famous people crashes, and the stars literally fall. After that, Springfield listens. Homer gathers a crowd and tells them to sell what they own and meet him on a high rock outside town to wait for the end. People follow him. Moe even sells his bar so he will not be left behind. They stand on the flat-topped hill with balloons, watching the sky, counting down as the time gets closer. Then, nothing happens. Hours pass. The sun goes down. The world is still there. People slowly turn on Homer, furious that they trusted him. Friendships are broken, money is gone, and all he can do is walk home in shame. Later, Homer finds a mistake in his math. He forgot to count Jesus in the Last Supper painting, so his numbers were off by 1. He decides to go back to the hill alone for the real end date. This time, something strange does happen to him, but by then his name is ruined. Nobody will listen. Even when he might be right, he is alone on the rock with no trust left. That whole story feels a lot closer to real life now. On social media, there are people in every country claiming they know the exact dates for the rapture or the end of the world. In late 2025, a pastor in southern Africa picked a date in late September and said the rapture would hit that weekend.
But by June, they think the World Cup will happen. But after the rapture of September 2025,
Clips of his warning spread so widely that reporters started calling the trend rapture talk. This kind of thing has happened before. A well-known preacher in the United States named a series of end dates in the early 2000s and pulled in huge donations, only to apologize after nothing happened. More recently, smaller prophets on video apps have claimed that the world would end on exact days, and then when nothing happened, they simply moved the date and kept posting. The pattern causes real harm. After the September rapture prediction failed, African news outlets reported families who had stopped medical treatments, given away belongings, or quit jobs. When nothing happened, some were left homeless or without critical medication they had abandoned in preparation for the end. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.